This is something I'm always thinking of when I'm doing references. Like, yes, I want to make sure that this person is legit and that they've left a positive impression with coworkers who can speak to the caliber of their skills. But in turn, when someone that's really talented, gives you references, you can generally infer that those references probably have similar traits and similar experience. So it's a headhunting opportunity. So at the end of those calls, I've done this a number of times. Like I just start talking with people, asking what they're up to, asking how they're liking their job, ask them if they've been casually keeping their eyes peeled, and from there I'll schedule a follow up conversation to get in front of them, so then I can hopefully recruit them for other opportunities.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of the podcast. Today we have an old friend of mine, Nick Misener. He is a partner and IT recruiter in Halifax, Nova Scotia with Venor. We're happy to have you on the podcast, Nick, to catch up and find out what you do, how you help people, and really learn about the recruiting market in the landscape here in Atlantic Canada, especially as it pertains to IT. So I guess I'll pause there and just say, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself, if I missed anything or what you want everyone to know about you before we get into some questions.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick, and thanks for having me, Nathan. Looking forward to catching up with you, Nick, and just going over some of the things that I do here in Atlantic Canada. So, I'm Nick Misener, a partner at Venor. We're Atlantic Canadian focused recruitment firm. So we partner with our clients and we connect them with tough to find talent. I lead our technology recruitment practice. We're a team of 5. For context, right now we've got over 40 active searches on the go, which is far and away the busiest that we've ever been. Outside of work, I'm a dad of twin daughters at home that just turned 1 year. So they keep me busy and like to get out and run when I'm not injured, and just generally stay busy, and just a huge proponent of growth in Nova Scotia and helping people out however I can, and happy to be along for the ride here today.
Awesome, man. That's great. How have you been making out during all this past 2 years?
Fortunately, knock on wood, really, really well. I remember at the early days of the pandemic, we had just bought a house, and I thought the real estate market was going to tank. And then in turn, I was like, who's going to need a recruiter when everyone's laying everybody off? So it's sort of a spooky couple of months there. But all things considered, thankful to have a home in a really competitive real estate market, and tech has absolutely taken off. And as a result, recruitment companies struggling to hire, or services are needed now, perhaps more so than ever. So there's been a lot of really cool positive things happening in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and then tech in general that have just created this perfect storm of conditions that has left me and left our firm in a really fortunate position.
Wow, that's awesome. And just I don't know the answer, so did you become a partner throughout the pandemic, or were you one prior to?
Yeah, we were in talks pre-pandemic, and then everything went on pause. And then about, I'd say 6 months in, we're like, okay, we're still, keeping our heads above water here. I was still, bullish on the company and felt good about where tech was trending. So we reignited the conversation, and made it happen in the midst of a pandemic, which in hindsight was sort of crazy, but I think the timing worked.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's interesting. You're sort of nervous, about what's going to happen to you in purchasing a home, and then all of a sudden your partner and things are cruising along. So, I think a lot of people through the pandemic, it's, you kind of were either somewhere in limbo, or on one side, things aren't so great, or, oh my goodness, this was a great opportunity, and look what's come from this, with a lot of hard work for sure, and good relationships and whatnot. I'm not so familiar with the recruiting business other than having a couple of clients that are in that world.
Yeah.
I've not yet been recruited. Probably not the best candidate. And I guess I haven't had to use those services. So like what does a typical day look like for you as a recruiter? What do you do?
Yeah. My grandma asks me this, and I tell her I send lots of emails, but that's just sort of like a joke. So I do a little bit more than that. Like if I were looking at my calendar today, like I've got, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 8 interviews lined up with people working in tech, majority developers, but just got off the phone with a VP sales candidate out in Toronto, and you're getting to know people. You're trying to understand like the story behind the resume. You're trying to poke around and just say like if there's anything that they're not able to accomplish in their current job, and then you kind of just pitch them an opportunity if there's something that's of interest and something that's a good fit. So it's interviewing people. It's getting to know what they want to do. And then in turn, the other side of this is the clients that we work with that come to us and say like, hey, Nick, this is a role, this is a search that we've really struggled for. We've looked for the past, 3 to 6 months and we just can't find anyone to do it. We need you to go out and leverage your network and, market this opportunity to get us someone with highly specialized skills. Or we've got clients that come to us and say like, this is a key strategic role for us. It's a leadership role, and it's going to make a huge impact on the business. So we want to do this the right way. And we want to have you go out and, market and advertise the role, but then in turn tap into your networks and find out those people that are heads down doing good work, and otherwise wouldn't be applying to roles out there. So sort of a broad overview there, but lots of discovery calls with candidates, lots of discovery calls with clients to find out what they really want, and then you sort of play the role of matchmaker in between.
Sound like you're a pretty busy guy, obviously, Nick, and I know you just joked saying you send emails all day, and it seems like this last couple of years have been kind of an upward trend for you, as you become a partner with Venor. Now, you mentioned it was a perfect storm and kind of everything was seeming to go the right way. Obviously, there must have been some challenges along the way, and I'm just kind of curious what challenges you guys did face, maybe some of the hard times.
Yeah, I mean, right away when the pandemic hit, it was pretty scary because our pipeline of searches was immediately like slashed by, I don't know, I think like 98%. So we went from being flat out busy to literally having no recruitment work to do. So that was a couple months that was really difficult because the outlook was so uncertain. So we just tried to do things out of goodwill and foster some level of confidence that things would be okay, which is tough when you don't really know that yourself. But then otherwise, there's been a huge shift in recruitment, remote work in tech, and IT recruitment is the absolute baseline. So our talent pool in Atlantic Canada is now seen as really attractive for companies that don't have bricks and mortar office spaces here. So it's way more competitive for talent regionally here. It's not regionally competitive anymore. It's globally competitive. So we have to work that much harder to get in front of good people, cut through the white noise, and capture their interest, which is tough when some of the people that I'm talking to are literally getting like 20 recruiter messages in a day. And I've been told like, hey, if I took every interview from a recruiter, it would be a full-time job for me. So I'm screening you, which is just such a kind of crazy shift in circumstance. But it's harder to find good people now, more so than ever before. There's a bunch of factors that I would attribute to COVID-19 for that.
Right. Okay. I know you mentioned the tech world's changing. I want to get into that in a little bit here, but before I go kind of further into that, I just wondering a little bit about how did you get this position? So what was your education like? Does it require any education formally? I know I saw on your LinkedIn, actually, it's called Programming Foundations, like the software development lifecycle. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us, do we need any sort of education to become a recruiter, or how does it work?
That's an interesting one because as a firm, it's hard to find good recruiters. And I think the stat that's out there right now is in Canada, on LinkedIn's job board specifically, there's over 14,000 open recruiter postings right now. Because companies need recruiters, but they're struggling to find them. And I can speculate as to why that is. Recruitment doesn't have a formal set of educational requirements. There's, a couple certifications out there, but there's no industry-wide standard that suggests like, hey, you're a CPA, you must be a good accountant. There's nothing like that. And how people get into recruitment is by, more often than not, happenstance. So people just fall into it, or think like, hey, this looks cool, I'm going to give it a shot. However, as a result, that's not a reliable feeder system. And recruitment, although like conceptually it's pretty simple, it's like you find people for companies, or you find jobs for people. It's this hodgepodge of skills and abilities that you need to draw upon that are almost mutually exclusive. Like in one day you're wearing, an HR cap. Another day it's like, okay, I'm a digital marketer. The next day you're doing sales. There's a bunch of different skill sets in there that, you unless you have some random weird path to getting there, you just, it's hard to find. So my path into recruitment was a little bit different. I graduated from St. Mary's in 2010 with an English degree, and taught overseas. Came back, and my teacher friends told me like, don't pursue teaching because there's no jobs. And I just sort of looked at, okay, what can I use my degree for? Like, in terms of progressing my education, there's a couple programs at NSCC that you need to have a degree to get into. And my only rationale behind that was like, I want to feel like I used my university degree. I don't want to say like I totally wasted 5 years of my life. And I looked at PR and HR, not knowing what either one was. And I looked at PR and I was like, that looks interesting. And then I looked at HR and I was like, I think there's more job opportunities. So I just like went to HR. But I took coursework there. Fell in love with it. I was like, okay, this combines a lot of the things that I was good at, or I enjoyed in university. And it's like a practical application. So branched off into HR, worked for a couple of organizations locally, and then transitioned into an HR leadership role with a local tech startup. My biggest focus there was recruitment. We scaled the business to from 15 employees to 45 within a year, and recruitment was my bread and butter there. And I was like, okay, this is the part of HR that I enjoy the most, more so than like, employee relations, stuff, and administering benefits. No disrespect to benefits, guys, but it's not for, I wouldn't be doing your job anyway. But that's sort of led me down the path of working for dedicated search firms, and I just saw the potential behind tech. So that was the path I ended up taking, and haven't looked back since.
Right on. Okay.
Nick, you touched on it a little bit, like how COVID has changed things, I guess, for where people are working, how they're working, etc. We have a number of tech firms as clients who had offices in New York or Toronto, and they've got 20 to 30 or 40 employees here in Atlantic Canada. Yeah. So, like, why is that happening? What's going on in the tech and IT world in Atlantic Canada, or Nova Scotia in particular?
Yeah, couple of factors. Like, we have a really good feeder system. We've got the highest per capita number of universities per people anywhere in Canada. It's just a good comp sci program. So companies say like, hey, like Dallas is going to be pumping out grads to me, and I can slot them into my company. That's a huge selling point. Then on top of that, like, there's a lot of positive optimism surrounding Halifax, Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada. We have a growing population. When people are looking Canada-wide, they're coming to locate here. People want to live here. Companies want to go where people want to live. Finally, I think there's a huge opportunity for tech companies specifically in the next 6 to 18 months to come in, pay generously, pay well above market, but still comparatively low to Toronto, Vancouver, New York, Silicon Valley, and capture up some really, really good people here. Because, I'll say it straight up. Atlantic Canada historically had repressed wages for tech employees. So you could hire two people here in Halifax versus, one person for the same cost in some other areas. So that combination of factors has generated a lot of interest from companies looking to move in here and take advantage of that. But we are seeing wages rise dramatically. So that gap's closing over time.
That's interesting. And I guess just to dovetail that a little bit, and I know you joked about benefits in your previous HR role. So good. Right on. Okay, awesome. When you're sitting down with recruits or people looking at other organizations, money's part of it, certainly salary. Like, it does, just out of curiosity, does benefits come up? And if it does, like, what are people in this sector wanting to see? With your
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
That's okay.
Absolutely. Like, every single conversation, like, of course, like, okay, money's good. I can get this money, all things considered, probably a couple of different places. What sets you apart? And it comes down to benefits. It's a huge part of the conversation, especially as tech companies mature and people start having families. Like, that's a huge priority for people. In addition to that, this has been spurred by COVID, but a renewed focus on health and wellness during, like, especially trying time. People care more about benefits and mental health and well-being and everything associated with those plans, more so now than before. It's a critical factor when people are determining whether they want to stay at a job or move on elsewhere. It's just like, is this a company that makes me feel cared for? And then in turn, like, if I'm healthy, I'm gonna be performing better at this job. I'm gonna want to stay here. So it's a daily conversation, 100%.
Wow. And what do you like? You may not have the answer, but if you had like 10 employers that you represent, what are the top ones doing as it pertains to benefits for this sector in particular? What are they doing different? Are they doing what our grandparents had for benefits, or are they switching the way things are done?
There's a shift. So I'd say, like, flexible spending, plans that are customized or customizable to an extent, understanding that there's not one size fits all, and there's all kinds of different family dynamics and structures that people have in place now that historically just weren't as common. A separate focus on, I'd say, like, employee assistance initiatives, and then also just mental health programs and supports, almost detached or separated, or maybe just highlighted in a different way. Whereas I felt in the past maybe they'd been buried in a benefits plan, where it's like, hey, like, this is something that's available, and we're going to educate you. We're going to educate you on it. So yeah, putting that stuff at the absolute forefront is what the best, most progressive companies are doing.
Awesome, cool.
That's interesting. I mentioned. I was talking to Nick a while ago. We kind of were discussing about how a lot of companies don't even know that their benefits plan has, like, employee and family assistance programs built into it. And obviously, if they don't know, the employees don't know, and it just kind of gets left in the dark. And they're paying for it. So, I mean, it's built in. So I'm sure that their employees could definitely use it. So now, kind of taking a different path here. I know we were kind of talking about your current situation and how stuff's been changing throughout COVID. Now, are you meeting with these recruits in person? Do you do it virtually? Like, how are you guys adapting to, like, the new tech and stuff?
It's almost all digital first, which is such a huge change. Like, I used to meet 6 people out for coffee just 2 years ago, and now that almost seems like, I don't even know how that would be received if I said to someone, like, hey, let's meet up for coffee. They'd be like, I don't know about that. Like, and that was just like, that was the baseline. So yeah, video interviewing, different means of digital communication. I still think one thing that has been missed, or we just haven't successfully replicated yet, is online digital networking. A lot of us, I think, have webinar fatigue, and it just doesn't, it hasn't been able to replicate, like, the in-person experience and those organic collisions it can make along the way. So that's been a challenge. I know there's been some attempts to shift that, but yeah, everything's digital first.
Cool. Yeah, they're pretty much the same as us at this point.
Yeah.
Do you find that's affected your ability to form relationships with people? Like I feel like maintaining relationships digitally is fine, but striking them up is more challenging. What's your perspective been on that?
Yeah, that might be a good one for you, Nick, because I'm pretty new to the industry. So, I mean, I've been doing sales for a while, so I'm used to seeing people in person, kind of sitting belly to belly, and it's a little bit different doing this virtual stuff. So I don't really know, I guess, in this industry. I guess in general, if I was to answer, I would say yes, meeting people in person is more effective just because you can actually kind of gauge them, you get to see them, and it feels a little bit more real. But like I said, Nick, you might be better to answer this question.
Yeah, I would say like Nick, like you said, it's maintaining the relationships. It's become it's not a challenge, I guess, and it's almost more advantageous, I think, for us because, as you would say, you may have 5 or 6 coffees, say downtown Halifax. You know, in my case, I'd be traveling all across the province. I can see 8 to 10 clients a day and not move once, which probably for physical side effects are not great. But, you know, for obtaining new clients or finding, you know, potential clients, yeah, I can't say I've quite got my finger on it yet to figure it out, like what it's going to look like. We fortunately were digital first. We were using Teams and Zoom prior to COVID. This has allowed our firm actually to expand across the country. So in the coming months, we'll be licensed in most provinces in Canada, whereas before we were only licensed in Atlantic Canada. Now I don't have to fly anywhere. I can just call someone up and meet and, you know, do everything we can do here. I would say from that human touch, though, is definitely missing. And I love to read people. You know, if it's a phone call, it's much harder than it is a video call. And if we're in front of each other, you know, from a sales perspective, I find my antenna and ability to read someone and perhaps where the meeting or negotiation is going to go is much easier when we're in person, a little easier when we're on video, very hard on the phone. So I don't know, it's probably not you know, it's not a direct answer to the question, but still trying to figure it out, but fortunate that this means of meeting has allowed us to expand across the country, you know. That's pretty cool.
100%.
Yeah. I guess I'm up for the next question here. You know, what sets your firm apart, Nick? Why would a recruit and an organization want to use you guys versus whoever else is out there? And I don't know of anyone else. So,
hey, that's a good thing for me to hear. But we have these conversations all the time at the firm, and recruitment's funny because, I mean, realistically, you know, we're using same tools and the same technology outside of a couple exceptions as, you know, the recruitment firm down the street, and we're talking to the same clients and the same candidates. Well, at least we're operating in the exact same market. The differentiating factor for us does come down to our people and the relationships. And I think a good example of this is, you know, we've consistently been tapped on the shoulder of the past number of years by companies that are looking to move into Atlantic Canada, and they're saying, like, you know, we've had our recruiters out of Texas, or we've had our recruiters out of Vancouver, you know, spin their tires for 3 months and they can't get anyone forward. You know, what's going on? And I look at these people, like, and they're good, you know, based on paper, like, they're good recruiters, they got good messages. But Atlantic Canada is like a very community-centric, relationship-driven market, probably more so than some other spots. So, I mean, even if I just, you know, replicate their efforts, I'll have different results because, you know, we're Maritimers and, you know, we played hockey together, Nick, or, you know,
right.
I know someone that knows you. And there's just that trust factor where, you know, relationships matter most here. So, you know, I look at, you know, our firm and I look at the track record of the people that we work with. They've been here, they're invested in the region, and over a long period of time, you know, doing the right thing, you build trust, and that's critical in recruitment. It's essentially all you've got is, you know, hey, I trust this person to find me the right people, or I trust this person to put my career in their hands. I'm going to listen to their guidance. So yeah, central all this is our relationships and just our track record of doing the right thing over a long period of time. Nothing glamorous about it, but yeah, it's something that's definitely been a competitive advantage for us.
Wow, that's interesting. What stuck out to me was like, well, clearly you being local, right, and understanding the landscape, and I recall in a previous position of mine where there was an outside sales firm was hired to make outbound calls on behalf of the agency I was working for.
Yeah.
They were based in Texas and calling in PEI in Atlantic Canada, and it was just like, no luck. You know what I mean? Like there's this total disconnect sometimes from the outside world to how we operate here. And I think that's the importance of having local representation if you're a national firm, or being local, as close as you can, 100%. And there's a lot of consolidation in the industry that Nathan and I work in. And it's, now head offices are in Toronto or in the States or somewhere. And it's kind of dissolving that relationship that most Maritimers in particular come to know, like, and trust. And it's hard to break that, despite how pretty it looks if you're in the ivory tower and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for those conversations with like the Texas sales guys, like dialing for dollars.
Yeah. You got it, man. That's what it was. It was funny. Your website says that you hire the best talent. How do you define that, and how do you find the best talent? What do they look like? What do they sound like? Who are they?
Yeah, the one thing that I keep at the forefront of all this is like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And that's what a good recruiter does. Is like, I'm not hiring this person to work with me. I mean, there's certain non-negotiables there across the board. It's like, is this person, they act with integrity, and they're reliable, can they do what they, say they can do? All that's important. But, beyond that, like a rock star candidate for one company, might not fit another company just down the street. So I think it's really critical to do a deep dive, understand our clients' needs, understand the culture, and look behind the job description to understand, okay, like, what is a good person? Who's going to thrive here? Who's going to fall flat? So that changes on a case by case basis. But how do we go about finding the best people? We use our networks, good people, know good people. And we have market knowledge where we're literally living and breathing this and talking to dozens of people every day. And along the way, you pick up common threads. You're like, okay, this company's got some really good people in this department, and they're being forced to come back to the office. That's an opportunity. Let's get in there, and then let's creatively tell our client story so it resonates with those candidates. Though, like, to distill it down a little bit more. Just for those who aren't intimately familiar with the world of recruitment, at any given point of time, 10% of your talent pool is actively on the job boards, scrolling through opportunities, the active job seekers. The other 90%, over half of them, statistically shown, they're open to hearing new opportunities if something was presented to them. They're not on the job boards, their heads down, they're content. And what our firm does is we unlock that other 50% of the candidate pool, and we'll go direct to them, find creative ways of getting in front of them, assess the fit, but then in turn, like, tell and showcase an opportunity, and understand what they want, and craft a narrative that resonates.
That's kind of leading into what I was going to ask next. So obviously you qualify them through your connections or however you ended up finding them. You figure out that they would be an awesome fit. Now, how do you guys have success in actually converting these, I guess I'll say, leads?
Yeah.
I know you said like an 85% success rate or something like that. So how do you guys become so successful in actually acquiring these people?
It's always a lot of work behind the scenes. Like, on any given search, we've got a a targeted list of candidates that we want to headhunt that could range from 50 to 300, and then we're mapping out like, okay, what messaging is going to appeal with this segment of that group, what messaging is going to appeal with this segment, and then when we're actually engaging them, it's all about reading people, understanding their aspirations, understanding their pain points, and then understanding if an opportunity is a good fit. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. And I think that's an important piece of all of this too. Is like we'll have conversations with some candidates going back over a span of 10 plus years. We know that they're good, but we don't want to look for a short outcome. So building relationships, finding out what resonates with people, and then recommending a fit when the fit is right. I'm putting a lot of legwork into it, just talking to a lot of people, canvassing the market, and approaching searches like marketers by, putting out content regularly, engaging in online niche audiences. And I know this is kind of a convoluted answer, but there's a lot of very small things that you do throughout the course of a search that add up to that end result, or like, hey, we successfully conducted the search. How do we get there? Not always linear. And oftentimes involves like, hey, here's a list of, like I said, 300 people. Here's 10 guys that we talked to in the last month that we know are looking out for something new. And then you finally get someone who said like, okay, Nick, I turned you down 10 times over the past 5 years, but it always seems like you had my best interest in mind. You understand what I'm looking for. You convinced me that this is that this fits the bill. I'm gonna engage in this, and let's see where it goes. So a lot of different little things add up to the end result.
So how would you react if somebody said, like, are you a salesperson? I see kind of similarities there between recruitment and sales, obviously. So what would you say to somebody that asked you that?
There's a ton of parallels between sales and recruitment. At the end of the day, we're persuading clients to give us a shot, and they invest their confidence in us. They're convinced that we can find them the right people. So they've been sold. And then in turn, when we're going out to candidates, we're selling them on the right opportunity and on the right jobs. I don't have an aversion to, being called a salesperson per se. I don't have any aversion to sales. I think it's a noble profession. And a lot of what we do, you can distill it down to sales principles. The only thing I would layer in though is that, we're never forcing something that's not the right fit. When you hear like the saying, like I could sell ice to an Eskimo, or, whatever that saying is, that's not what we do. It's all about the long game.
Right. And can you explain a little bit, like, I don't really know myself. I'd be interested to find out how it works. Like if I was a business and I was going to go out and hire Venor to recruit for me, like what are the costs associated with it? Like what does it look like? Do I just messages or?
Yeah. So if we have a company reach out to us, or if we see a company growing and, we reach out to them to get a sense of if there's a match and if we can help them hit their growth targets. We do a deep dive conversation where, we understand the hiring plans, the company culture, the skill set. We'd consult on, the feasibility of that as it relates to like, the talent that we have available in the market. If everything's kosher and a good mutual match, and it seems like our values are aligned, our model for taking on work is a small commencement fee to get things off the ground and ensure that there's like a mutual commitment from both parties to work towards a positive outcome. And then the bulk of most recruiters' fees are paid on a contingency basis. So when we find the right person and that person signs off accepting the offer of employment, at that point we would invoice for the bulk of our services. So
Gotcha.
We're only as good as our ability to deliver.
Okay.
Is it just curious? Does that fee carry on indefinitely, or is that sort of you find Nick, he's hired, take an X, and then you're? That's
a good point. So to like clarify, every now and then I'll have a candidate and be like, hey, like, you interviewed me, like, do I have to pay you now? And I'm like, no, like you don't you don't pay recruiters as a candidate. The company will pay us, and it's independent of someone's salary. It's not like I'm like, Nick, you get, your next job and they're going to pay you, 100 grand base salary. It's not like you're going to make 90K now because I placed you there. It's paid independently of that, and it's not a recurring model there. Mind you, there are like, certain firms out there that would provide staffing services. So if you need like a blue collar worker that's going to go work at an auto body shop in Burnside, I'm just making this up. They might pay someone hourly rate and then mark them up and put them forward to the client so they get the margin there. But that's not our model.
Interesting. What does the interview process look like? And I guess, yeah, I'll let you answer that one first. I got another one. Just can't wait to ask.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends on the role. So I'm doing an executive level search right now, and that model is we'll reach out to someone, initial high level discovery call where it's a mutual exchange of information. It's not like we're not grilling candidates. They still don't know if they're interested. They don't know anything about the job or company. We've solicited their interest. So we'll have an initial discovery call to like firm up high level details. And then from there, if they're interested moving forward, we'd enter them into a more involved, structured interview that you might draw on some behaviorally descriptive interview questions. For an executive level search, we'd also apply our psychometric analysis tool, which we have offered through a partnership with Caliper, which kind of identifies underlying traits and how someone manages up and how they might manage down. That's additional kind of like data-driven assessment service that we offer. But if I'm recruiting a software developer, for example, if I've if I haven't met them before, it's exchange of information digitally, and then let's line up a video interview, non-structured calls where we're just kind of feeling each other out and getting a sense for things that they've done in the past, an understanding of their technical competencies, and then just trying to find out about their aspirations and identify pain points. And if there's something that I'm working on that would put them in a better spot, we can pursue it. And if not, so be it. Happy to keep it in mind going forward. But then from there, once the initial qualification is done and we're confident this person's a good fit, we'll put them forward to our clients, who will then put them through their hiring process, and we provide consultation throughout that and 360 feedback throughout the process. But that's the general interview overview.
You mentioned earlier that you have some unique ways to approach candidates and get creative. Do you have an example of one time when you got creative and what that might have looked like? Yeah,
there's a couple. One of them is, maybe this isn't that creative, but like I'm on a reference call with someone, and this is something I'm always thinking of when I'm doing references. Like, yes, I want to make sure that this person is legit and that they've left a positive impression with coworkers who can speak to the caliber of their skills. But in turn, when someone that's really talented, gives you references, you can generally infer that those references probably have similar traits, similar experience. So it's a headhunting opportunity. So at the end of those calls, I've done this a number of times. Like I just start talking with people, asking what they're up to, asking how they're liking their job, ask them if they've been casually keeping their eyes peeled, and from there I'll schedule a follow-up conversation to get in front of them, so then I can hopefully recruit them for other opportunities. On top of that, I somehow infiltrated a poker group that's all software developers, and I think at one point or another, I've recruited every single one of them. I don't even know I'm invited. I'm the only person that's not a developer there. I have no idea what they're talking about half the time, but just sitting down, having a relationship and building trust, people, see you as someone that connected and can give you honest guidance on your career, and through that, I've just met a lot of super smart people that wouldn't have given me the time of day otherwise.
Nice. That's pretty cool. What advice would you give someone entering the industry or looking to? 110%
play the long game. We're all going to have long careers. And I think what happens when a lot of people enter our industry is you have quotas, you have targets. It's just, similar in some respects to a sales role. They feel pressure to, get the job done or to take shortcuts immediately just to get some numbers on the board. But at the end of the day, it's like this is a relationship game. It's a small tight knit community in Atlantic Canada, tech even more so. Shortcuts can tarnish long-term relationships, and in turn, if you make a positive impact on someone, at the start of your career, they're going to come back to you in 2 years down the road. They've had a positive experience, and the dynamic's totally different. So yeah, I would definitely just say, focus on building relationships. Don't try and force the matter. And remember, we're all going to have long careers, and karma is a real thing in recruitment.
Yeah, that's karma's a real thing in many situations. I definitely agree. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Nick, this has been a pleasure, man. It's great to get to know your professional side of things and what's going on in the IT recruitment, world here in Atlantic Canada. We appreciate your time. Where can people find you, Nick? I think I have an idea, but do you want to share where they can find Nick Misener?
Yeah, so you can check me out on LinkedIn. Post a lot of regular content, and LinkedIn is like a central point for companies who are hiring. So check me out at Nick Misener on LinkedIn. Also have Twitter, which is updated semi-irregularly. My username's Nick Mise, M-I-S-E. And check me out on Twitter as well.
Awesome. Well, listen, thanks so much.
Socials.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm not on TikTok yet.
We tried that, and anyway, tried that. That's all I'll say.
What kind of TikToks were you making?
Oh, buddy, good ones. PG, sure. Tried some comedy ones and tried some business ones, and then I was like, I don't know. This seems like I don't know if I'm clever enough.
So. Maybe someday.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I felt. I was like, how do these people come up with this stuff?
Hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad about my creative abilities, but anyways, Nick Misener, recruiter, partner at Venor here in Halifax. We really appreciate you joining us on episode 6. Be sure to like, follow, share this pod. Thanks again, and tune in for episode 7 coming in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, Nick.
Pleasure.